The Black Forest. A chilling horror tale from northern Sweden. Friends, today's story is about The Black Forest, one of my favorite horror series ever. It begins with four friends who travel deep into the remote, signal-free forests of northern Sweden. They've come here to fulfill their late friend Robert's last wish. A few months earlier, after a party, Luke and Robert had entered a small convenience store. Suddenly, a robbery took place. Luke hid behind the shelves, but Robert decided to face the robbers. The robbers brutally murdered Robert, right in front of Luke. Since that night, Luke has lived in guilt and regret, haunted by his cowardice. Robert's dream was to see these very mountains in northern Sweden. So Luke decided to honor his friend's wish. He convinced his mates Dom, Hutch, and Phil, and together, they set off on their trek. But their journey was far from easy. On their way back, Dom twisted his leg badly. Reaching their hotel would take at least 14 hours, but Dom could barely walk. So they decided to take a shortcut through the forest. A decision that would turn out to be the biggest mistake of their lives. As soon as they entered the woods, their compass stopped working. Hutch noticed it but kept quiet to avoid panic. He thought if they just kept walking straight, they'd eventually find a way out. But the deeper they went, the stranger and darker the forest became. Soon they stumbled upon something horrific. A black bear hanging from a tree, its belly torn open, blood dripping onto the ground. Their skin crawled. They assumed it must have been the work of hunters and hurried away. Night fell and it began to pour heavily. Searching for shelter, they found an old wooden cabin in the middle of the forest. They decided to stay there for the night. When Phil went upstairs to check if anyone was inside, he discovered something deeply disturbing. A headless straw effigy with deer antlers attached to its hands. Everyone was terrified. Phil whispered, "This looks like some kind of black magic ritual." But Luke tried to calm them down. "Let's not scare ourselves more." Still, the cabin's atmosphere was unnerving. That night, as they lay trying to sleep, Luke saw a strange white light flash before his eyes. When he stepped outside, it felt as if he was back in that same store where Robert had been killed. He couldn't tell if it was a dream or reality, until he looked down and saw deep claw marks across his chest. Suddenly, a piercing scream came from inside the cabin. Luke rushed in. Hutch had wet himself in terror, Dom was screaming in his sleep, and Phil was nowhere to be found. When Luke went upstairs, he froze. Phil was kneeling naked before the straw effigy, as if under a spell. Luke snapped him out of it, and they all decided to leave immediately. As they ran deeper into the forest, they saw strange symbols carved into trees all around them. Their fear grew with every step. Dom's leg pain worsened, but they had no choice but to continue. That night, they set up their tents, hoping to rest till morning. But soon, eerie noises surrounded them. Luke peeked outside. There were dark, shadowy figures standing among the trees. Then came that white light again, and suddenly Luke saw the robbery scene replaying before him, as if the robbers were staring directly at him this time. Moments later, a massive shadow loomed outside his tent. Hutch's tent was suddenly dragged away into the dark. Screams echoed through the forest. By morning, Hutch was gone, and soon they found his body hanging from a tree, his chest ripped open like the bear's. Now they knew something inhuman was hunting them. Later, they spotted a creature-shaped shadow on a distant hill. Before long, that thing came closer and dragged Phil away into the woods. Only Luke and Dom remained. Running for their lives, they stumbled upon another cabin with a dim light inside. They rushed in and locked the door, thinking they were safe. But inside was a strange old woman. Before they could react, everything went black. When Luke woke up, he found himself tied up with ropes beside Dom. The old woman entered, saw Luke's claw marks, and smiled. She rolled up her sleeve, showing the same marks on her arm. Then she looked at Dom, who had no marks, and ordered her people, "Take him." Moments later, Dom's screams filled the air. They tied him to a wooden post outside, surrounded by piles of bones and skulls. Dom saw what looked like his wife approaching, but as she came closer, her face morphed into a monstrous creature. Dom screamed as the creature lifted him into the air, and just like that, he was gone. Meanwhile, Luke dislocated his fingers, broke free from the ropes, and armed himself with a torch. He discovered a hidden chamber full of people. Not dead, not alive, immortal servants of the creature. Realizing what they were, he set them all on fire. The creature roared in anger, rushing back to the cabin. Luke grabbed a rifle and prepared to fight. The monstrous forest god appeared, forcing Luke to bow before it. But Luke refused. He grabbed a hatchet and struck the creature hard. It screamed in pain. Luke ran, sprinting until he finally reached the edge of the forest. When he looked back, the creature stood at the tree-line, unable to cross into the open. Luke screamed at it with all his anger. "You can't control me anymore." The creature howled one last time and vanished into the dark woods. Luke had finally faced his fear, conquered his guilt, and avenged his friend Robert's death. He walked out of the Black Forest, the only one alive,